I know for a fact that some people get pretty concerned when they see dried up leaves on succulents. And it is a good thing, as drying leaves can mean a succulent is in trouble. I get asked repeatedly by customers why leaves on succulents dry out, as it can happen quite often. In this video we'll have a look at the main reasons succulent leaves can shrivel and die, as well as how to fix them. So here's a bunch of succulents that in my opinion look pretty nice and healthy. Yet every single one of these has shriveled, dried up leaves at the bottom. Am I worried there's something sinister going on with my plants? No, not really. Succulents will naturally drop leaves from time to time. A few leaves at the bottom is usually pretty normal for succulents. If you've ever seen succulents in the wild or looked them up on the internet, many have some shriveled leaves. Unless the leaves are shriveling and drying out at a larger scale out of nowhere, this is honestly just fine. Before leaves start shriveling and drying out, many will change color to yellow, kind of orange or light brown. Again, as long as it is not too many, it's all good and very likely natural. When you do see dried up leaves, I'd recommend to pluck them off. The main reason for me is mealybugs. They like to hide their eggs in dried up leaves. But tidying up will also create a little bit of extra airflow, which succulents like. I usually clean up shriveling and dead leaves off when I repot. Some succulents, such as this Echeveria hybrid, kind of need to be grown on the dry side, as they are susceptible to all sorts of fungal disease when they get too much water. As a result, their leaves will start to shrivel and slowly die off when they get way too dry. This particular plant needs harsh treatment like this, but not all succulents do. During droughts and when succulents are very thirsty, they'll start using up the stored water in their leaves and stems. If they don't receive water once the leaves are shriveled, they'll slowly start completely drying up and dying from the bottom. Once your succulent starts getting wrinkles like this, it's definitely time to give them a good soak. It is very likely the leaves will slowly start dying off if they don't get watered. If you have a water-sensitive succulent, stick the pot into a bucket of water until all of the potting mix is completely saturated. Otherwise, you can easily water overhead with a hose. Once the succulent reaches the limit of its root area, it will start getting root bound. More often than not, the consequence is shriveling leaves. The more root bound the succulent gets, more leaves will shrivel off and die. The danger of losing leaves is higher with thinner leaf succulents and when extremes such as heat waves hit. This is a root bound Echeveria glauca that is slowly losing its bottom leaves. It will be fine for now as it is fairly cool, but once the hot weather returns, it can quite literally die. The fix to this is repotting either into the same pot or into a bigger pot. Extreme weather events such as heat waves can very quickly cause water to evaporate even from tough plants like succulents. The strong sun can not only dry plants out but also cause burns, just like it does with our skin. Strong direct sun, especially during summer, can cause leaves to shrivel quite fast and may even cause a death of a succulent. If you're expecting heat waves, I'd suggest moving succulents into shade for the duration or get a shade cloth which will bounce the harmful UV rays off. All my nursery succulents live under 30% shade cloth in summer. This way they still get the sun needed for healthy and compact growth, but are protected from UV. If you've seen some of my other videos, you could probably see this one coming. Good quality potting mix will help your succulents grow fabulous, while bad potting mix can cause a bit of trouble. When potting mix is way too well draining or too heavy and dries into a hard mass, it can cause leaves to shrivel and die off. Potting mix that lets water go through too fast doesn't really give the plant a chance to have a decent drink. This can dehydrate a succulent fast, especially in dry, warm weather. A potting medium that is too heavy and uses a lot of sand, or if you use plain garden soil, can get super dense when wet and dry, which will make it difficult for succulents to grow roots. Here's a comparison of horticultural sand and my succulent potting mix when wet. The sand keeps its shape while the potting mix crumbles, as it should. Many succulents have thin roots that would find it hard growing through dense potting media, and this would have the same effect as being root bound. A while ago, I did an experiment with this Echeveria glauca to see how long it would take before it dies indoors. I think it lasted something like 4 to 5 months, but it started deteriorating after a couple of weeks. Despite being on a windowsill with a bit of morning sun, the bottom leaves started to shrivel and die. Not all succulents do badly indoors, but the majority prefers a certain amount of sun. If you want to grow succulents inside a house or in full shade, I'd suggest to do a good amount of research to see which ones can handle it. In too much shade, succulents are likely to stretch and elongate. Often their leaves either shrivel or go mushy depending on how humid it gets in the house and how often they're watered. The leaves on this zigzag euphorbia are shriveling because we're heading into winter here in Australia. They will fall off completely in a week or so and regrow in spring. The same is going to happen to this Pachypodium succulentum. This one is grown in a greenhouse, and so the shriveling of the leaves is going to be delayed a bit, but I can already see the signs. Many succulents with thin leaves like this tend to drop them for winter. Another good example is Euphorbia mili. But it's not just the cold months that make succulents' leaves shrivel and drop. This little variegated sedum starts shriveling before summer comes along. If the summer is too hot, the plant loses most of its leaves and branches. When it cools down, it will start growing back like this. Many succulents will grow quite dense, and as the leaves push against each other, they can shrivel and die. It's pretty normal and nothing to worry about. I sometimes take the shriveled leaves off. It can also happen in the garden or arrangements when succulents grow too much and get a bit crowded. Once they start pushing each other out or growing over, it's pretty likely you'll see leaves shrivel. Sometimes it may be necessary to step in and chop some plants back a bit. Pests can also cause leaves to shrivel and die. The worst offenders are sap-sucking pests such as aphids, mealybugs or scale. If you see any on your succulents, do make sure to eradicate them before they start spreading. They quite literally suck the juice of leaves and stems and can cause lots of damage. The white or cream bits on variegated succulents lack chlorophyll and therefore have trouble absorbing sunlight and perform photosynthesis. Some variegated succulents can start growing white-only leaves, and these tend to shrivel and die as they have a hard time processing light. White or cream variegated succulents can be difficult to grow and may need a bit of extra TLC to live. If they start turning albino like this Crassula sarmentosa variegata, they may completely shrivel up and die. Right, I think that's all the reasons I can think of. If you can think of any other reasons, do tell us in the comments below. If you'd like to learn more about succulents, you can subscribe to my channel or visit succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you very much for watching.